As we wrapped up Before the Shadow and began looking toward the future, we asked ourselves where we wanted to take the story and the game next. There was an overwhelming consensus that we wanted to head south to less traveled shores, across the salty sea, beyond the Bay of Bephalis, to the shore of the Corsair kings. Yes, that's right, Umbar itself. And that, dear readers, is a tale for another day. Yes, that's right. After an update in the middle of the year taking us back to Gondor, we will then head south to Umbar in a new expansion for LOTRO. And so there's so many things I want to talk about with this update, but let's start first with where is Umbar? So for those that don't know where Umbar is, I thought we'd look at the general map for all of LOTRO so far, and it might surprise you to know that Umbar is not on this map. To the south of Gondor, we have an area called Harondor. It is an area disputed historically and presently between Gondor to the north and Harad to the south. Between these two rivers here is Harondor. It borders up with Mordor over here. We are going to go to the south of that, south off of the current map of Middle-earth for LOTRO. Yes, we are going beyond the borders of the map for, I believe, the first time in LOTRO history. So you might be saying, okay, Andang, that's great, but where is Umbar? Well, let me show you. Here's Harondor, which we were talking about earlier, between the Anduin and the lower river here. And then you got a bunch of Harad in between. And then down here you have a little harbor called the Havens of Umbar. And then Umbar right here. Now, you might be saying, but wait, Andang, didn't we have a map that included Umbar on it a long time ago, back in the old art style? And you'd be right. In fact, I got that map right here. This is actually where Umbar is. It is way, way to the south of anywhere we've ever been in LOTRO, far to the south of Gondor. To give a sense of scale, on this map at least, the first Mordor expansion was about this big right here. The landmass, like the minimum amount of landmass that we'd probably have to cover, would be twice the size of the previous giant Mordor expansion to get down here, unless we have a very vertical slice along the coast, which could be possible, but for that long of a distance, this would be the most vertical zone LOTRO's ever done. In fact, the only other time I can think of that LOTRO has ever done a very thin-lined zone was in Far Anorian with the Beacon Hills, where we had Halfirion all the way to Amundin, and it was just a series of beacons, one after another. Now, I actually really liked this zone, but it really was just the beacons. So I'm hoping that with this expansion, one of two things happens. One, we have really large zones that are still highly detailed, which is going to require a ton of development effort to create entire new environments based on desert and coastal areas at a grand scale, making it one of the largest expansions we've ever had. Or we take a boat ride to near the areas where the Corsairs are. Maybe we end up shipwrecked because, you know, they stopped us along the way or something, and we're outside the city of Umbar, and we have this, you know, giant expansion around Umbar, similar to the scale of Minas Morgul. I think that would actually be a fantastic expansion. I loved Minas Morgul. The amount of detail that was in all the areas was great. And so if we actually made a jump to where we ended up shipwrecked somewhere and then causes us to end up, you know, around the city of Umbar, I think that would actually be really cool. Speaking of Umbar, it is the capital city of the Corsairs, and there's a lot of really cool city depictions of this. For those that don't remember from LOTRO, this is the area that Jajax came from. For those that watched the Peter Jackson Lord of the Rings movies, it's where the ships come from that Aragorn departs with his, entire undead army. It's those ships came from Umbar, the black sail ships that they make a big deal about. And so there's a lot of really cool depictions of Umbar online. Um, Kind of weird that they have the sails be a little bit different here, but maybe these were trading vessels, but some cool ideas. But basically, we should see for the first time ever a tropical desert pirate environment in LOTRO, which I am incredibly excited about. Hopefully, it will look even half as cool as some of these photos that I've found. One thing that's cool with all the images of Umbar is they always have a really cool harbor area like this one does that's like some crazy Phoenician stuff. I mean, it's really, really cool. And then there's also like the dastardly evil pirate Harad corruption tie-in, cool artistic point of view that just makes for some really neat and interesting cities. As far as the politics of Umbar, there is a lot of dispute how exactly that's set up. Some people think that Harad, which is the area that consumes most of the area south of Gondor, a lot of people think Harad had infiltrated the Corsairs and took over their leadership. And so that's what made them go evil and fight for Harad against Gondor, where Harad's kind of pulling the strings in the background, and then the Corsairs are, going forth and doing their bidding, basically. Sometimes they're depicted as a completely third party that has nothing to do with Harad, and they take advantage of situations and focus mainly on controlling the coastal side of Harad, whereas Harad proper controls, the area further within. And then sometimes they're kind of just shown as like good friends, like, yeah, we'll look the other way because we're both against Gondor, and so we'll just assume that we're on the same side, kind of a thing. So it'll be interesting to see how LOTRO covers it. It seems like from our interactions with Jajax and Harad and some other things already that I think LOTRO is going with the Harad infiltrated their ranks kind of situation, or they're just assuming that the Corsairs are independently evil as well. So one thing I would love for LOTRO to do with this expansion is to really lean into the naval focus of the Corsairs. Maybe allow the player to be like a pirate on the ships of one of the Corsairs, or with, a Gondorian ship, or maybe just their own independent ship as well would be really cool. And have some sort of cool naval story would be awesome. Something that gets largely overlooked in Middle-earth in general. It would be fantastic to find out what in the world Middle-earth naval combat looks like. I think that would be really cool. Speaking of pirates, I know Corsairs are technically a little bit different, as they are more of a noble pirate, if you will. But it still would be really cool to have just a pirate-themed expansion. What can I say? I'm a young kid at heart. It would be just super dope to have all sorts of like cool pirate armor and stuff like that. And please, LOTRO, hear me out on that pirate ship idea. It would be so cool if players could like drive around their own pirate ship. I know mounted combat caused a bunch of lag and issues and problems, and I'm sure naval combat would do things even worse. But man, oh man, if it didn't and they could somehow pull it off, naval combat would be really cool. So if LOTRO did decide to do a contiguous landscape, it'd be really cool to go to Harondor in this expansion. That is an area where we could see Gondorians who are more leaning towards allying with Harad. And we could also see Haradrim that might actually want to go towards Gondor, as it is a disputed area. And so you could see a lot of interesting gray characters that are, neither on the good or evil side. They're kind of just trying to make up their mind of well, what is my role here in Middle Earth? And, who should I be aligned with? And, some of them are just trying to live their lives and ignore all the wars and everything. And so it'd be a really great opportunity to explore the history of the dispute between Harad and Gondor and introduce a lot of that. If they do decide to go there, that would be the zone that would set up a whole bunch of stuff with the future invasion that Gondor will do of Harad and Rune and all that stuff. I think it'd be really cool to start setting up the interesting plot lines in the Harad area. If you continue down the coast, you then get into your first taste of desert in LOTRO, which would be fantastic. Plus, you have the tropical coastline, which we haven't seen a ton of. We got like the kind of Greek area up in Belfalis, but it looks like most depictions of Umbar and coastal areas in Harad have it be a lot more tropical, and then also a desert tropical theme. We might see a whole new style of architecture based on sand and desert type construction materials, which would be really, really cool. Would love to see something like that. Also, in a few places, Tolkien kind of hints at the fact that there could be jungle in Harad, and so we might even see a brief blip of jungle somewhere in this Umbar expansion. Generally, it's thought to be much further south where the jungle area is, but it would still be really cool if we got to see some cool jungle areas as another new environment that we hadn't seen before. One thing I'd also like to point out is there are an awful lot of islands along these coasts. As you make your way down towards Umbar, it would make sense that the Corsairs would have like little outposts or stuff on some of these islands. I think that would be pretty cool, especially if there was some sort of player naval aspect that was somewhat open. It would be really neat if we could, take our ships to some of these islands. I think that would be a really cool feature. I doubt LOTRO would ever actually give players their ships. It sounds like Lag City, and the game already has enough of that. But man, I still think it would be cool if they could pull it off. I think this is pretty much the only time, the last potential chance of LOTRO ever adding in any sort of naval type anything to the game. And it would be really cool to finally have that opportunity. There have been forum threads for years, especially when we got to Gondor, about potentially allowing players some sort of naval type combat, or just allowing them to have their ship and just sail freely would be cool as well. So if for some reason LOTRO did decide to go that way, I think it'd be really cool and something unique to the game. After all, it's been a really, really long time since they've added any sort of new mainline feature to LOTRO, and I think that this would be a cool new mechanic to add to the game. Anyway, enough about all that stuff. Let me know in the comments below what you guys want to see with this new Corsair expansion. As we go to the city of the Corsairs, Umbar itself, I am super excited. Do you guys think we'll be going there with a contiguous landscape? Or do you think we will just somehow end up shipwrecked or something like that, where we have an area of the map that is separate from everything else? Let me know about all that stuff in the comments below. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to leave a like, and I'll see you again real soon for more Lord of the Rings Online.